وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله خالق الوجود من العدم، وجاعل النور من الظلم، ومخرج الصبر من الألم، وملقي التوبة على الندم. ونشكره على المصائب كما نشكره على النعم، والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الأمين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين، أما بعد. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. My dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. We have gathered again after, I think, 2 weeks. I think it has been 2 weeks. And subhanAllah, a lot has changed within these 2 weeks. Changing or change, it's very, very important. For a person to grow, for a person to advance, and for a person to develop in life, one needs to change. And a lot of change is still required. Our society has a lot of problems. And when society has problems, there are going to be counter movements who are trying to initiate or trigger change. Now, the change can be positive or the change can be negative. The topic we are going to be talking about today is extremely, extremely relevant to this particular discussion. Now, before directly going into that particular topic, let me just mention the general rules and regulations. Make sure your intentions are on track. This is very, very, very important. Just close your eyes and say to yourself that I'm doing this only for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just say it to your heart. Once you say it, say yes in the chat. Say to yourself that you're here only for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nothing else. Have that pure intention. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّةِ. You got to purify, rectify, and filter your niyyah. This is very important. This is very, very important. If you do that, each and every second you spend in the session is going to be extremely, extremely beneficial for you from the perspective of the akhirah. You're basically making an investment. Imagine somebody told you that if you sat in a class, they'll pay you $10 for every second that you spent. Subhanallah, what Allah is offering you is far, far, far greater. And all you got to do is just purify your intention. It's that simple. And also have a notebook with you. The way you sit in the class actually shows how dedicated you are. If you're just, laying down on the bed, calmly relaxing and listening to my voice with an earphone, don't do that. That is not how you're supposed to sit in a class. You just stand up, sit straight, and have a notebook with you. If you have done these, say yes in the chat. If you have done these, say yes in the chat. Sit straight, have a notebook with you, and if you're listening, this is very, very important. That is basically the code and the adab of sitting in a class. And also make use of the Zoom chat. I'll be asking you a lot of questions. This is the way I usually take classes. I like to have dialogue rather than making it a monologue, discussions, debates, brainstorms. This is my methodology. So the more you engage with me, the more you are going to benefit, inshallah. And please don't use any social media while you are in the class. It's very important. And an assignment task is going to be given in the end, inshallah. And also, just to give you a heads up, we are going to be moving forward with IPD a bit more seriously. There's going to be clear filtration of the groups. Only the people who continue with the assignments and the tasks will be allowed to continue on this journey with us, because we are having a lot of future plans for COJ. So make sure you are sitting in the class fully ready with sharp, keen ears, inshallah. Now let's begin with a very simple question. Is it okay for men to cry? Is it okay for men to cry? What do you think? I mean, are men really supposed to cry? Like, isn't that a bit awkward, embarrassing? Come on. What? Come on, why would men cry? Men are supposed to be tough and rough, and they're not supposed to cry. And they're supposed to be extremely serious, right? Now, this is actually a very, very important question and is related to our topic of discussion today. And we're going to be talking about the different movements that have come up, in the recent times, that promote masculinity, but it's very toxic. That promotes nobility, but it's very toxic, right? Now, the issue of crying, we'll get to that, later on. But, of course, I'm not talking about, crying 24/7, like a cry baby. And every time you say something, the guy starts crying. That is not what I'm saying. But I'm talking about, crying for things that you should be crying for, right? Now, This is a very, very important discussion. We'll be having that as we move ahead, and we'll be getting or starting with the discussion with this particular hadith from Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, said that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, indeed, Allah is gentle and loves gentleness and gives due to gentleness that which he does not give to harshness. Which he does not give to harshness. Read the hadith again, and after you have read it again, say yes in the chat. That's reported by Ibn Majah and Ibn Hibban. Read the hadith again, and after you have read it, say yes in the chat. Say yes in the chat. Indeed, Allah is gentle and loves gentleness and gives due to gentleness that which he does not give to harshness. Now let's have a small hadith analysis. The word gentleness, what does gentleness mean? Does anyone know what gentleness means? In Arabic, it is rifq. Yuhibb rifq, to be layyin and latif. I'll explain what it means, inshallah. Being gentleness means, being kind and being merciful. Being merciful. Have you heard about gentleman? What does gentleman mean? Gentleman. A man who is gentle in his dealings, right? But does that mean he's weak? If a man is gentle, doesn't mean he's weak. Now, this is also a big confusion that a lot of people have. Some fathers, they think that if they express their love for their daughters or their sons, they are weak, and they don't do it. Like, I've seen a lot of cases in which fathers, they just, want to act strong. They don't express their emotion whatsoever. And the children, they feel emotionally void. They feel emotionally disconnected from their father. And they feel emotionally distant and detached from the father. And it's a very sad reality. It's a very sad reality. They're supposed to express their love, especially for their family. Some men, to show that they're macho men, to show that they're tough and rough, they come home and, they shout at their wife and create a scene in the home. And they think that it's tough. No, that is not tough. That is weakness. That is weakness. The guy doesn't know how to control his emotions. That is what it is. Subhanallah. We'll talk about gentleness and how we should become gentle in the upcoming slides, inshallah. Now, there's a very specific context of this particular hadith. All right. So one day in Medina, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sitting with his beloved wife Aisha radiallahu anha. And Jews, they used to hate the Prophet a lot. They used to hate the Prophet a lot. And unlike the mushrikeen who would directly attack, the Jews were very strategic. The Jews were very strategic in their attacks. Like from that time until now, even if you look at the Zionist state of Israel, that is how, they're doing stuff. When I went to Palestine 2 weeks back, I tried to talk to the people. I tried to talk to the Palestinians. And when the Palestinians explained how their, houses were conquered and how it was hijacked, they said that it was completely makr. Like these people, they're very cunning. They're very cunning. There were some Israelis who came with, the dressing and the shape and the adab of the Arabs. They infiltrated into the community and destroyed the community. These people are very cunning, subhanallah. Anyway, the Jews, they used to hate the Prophet ﷺ a lot, and they were very strategic. So one day the Prophet ﷺ was sitting with Aisha radiallahu anha, and the Jews, they came and said, Assalamu alaikum. Now the question is, if a Muslim meets another Muslim, what are we supposed to say? What are we supposed to say? If a Muslim meets another Muslim? Anyone know? Very good. Assalam. Namaste. Come on. Subhanallah, these guys. Okay, Assalamu alaikum. All right. You're supposed to say Assalamu alaikum. Now, what does Assalamu alaikum mean? What does Assalamu alaikum mean? It means peace be upon you. Assalamu alaikum. May peace be upon you. It's a very, very beautiful thing. It's a very, very beautiful saying, right? So we need to practice this. We need to say Assalamu alaikum. But do you know what these Jews used to do? They used to come to the Prophet ﷺ and, they, just like, we're supposed to Assalamu alaikum, they used to mold it and they used to say Assalamu alayka. What does Assalamu alayka? It basically means may poison and death be upon you. Right? That is what they're saying. But they're trying to mold it in a way that there's a confusion. If you hear it, you'll be confused. Like, what are they saying? Are they saying Assalamu alaikum or they are saying Assalamu alaikum? So you'll be confused, right? So when the Jews actually said it, Aisha radiallahu anha, she really, really, really loves the Prophet. She loves the Prophet from the depth of her heart. And she got really angry. Imagine this. Imagine that you were walking with your mother and somebody came up and shouted at your mother saying, may you die, or, saying a lot of curse words. What would you do at that situation? What would you do at that situation? What would you do at that situation? You become really angry, right? You would become really angry, and probably the guy would regret it, right? The guy would regret it. You would make the guy regret, right? Now, similarly, Aisha, she actually loves the Prophet more than we love our own mothers. So Aisha, she got so angry, and she returned by saying, وَعَلَيْكُمُ الْمَوْتِ وَاللَّعْنَ يَا أَبْنَاءِ الْقِرْدَةِ وَالْخَنَازِيرِ. Like that is a very, very harsh reply. She said, and upon you be death and the anger, or children of monkeys and pigs. Right? Why did they say monkeys and pigs? Like there's a context to that. وَلَقَدْ عَلِمْتُمُ الَّذِينَ اعْتَدَوْا مِنْكُمْ فِي السَّبْتِ فَقُلْنَا لَهُمْ كُونُوا قِرْدَةً خَاسِئِينَ. Like there's a specific context to that. Aisha was so angry, like she got so emotional. Now, when the Prophet ﷺ heard it, what did the Prophet ﷺ say? Did she say, oh, you have done a good job? No, that's not what the Prophet ﷺ said. The Prophet ﷺ told her, calm down, Aisha. Calm down. Take it easy. All right. Then he said this particular hadith. And what is the hadith? Let's read the hadith again. What is it? Indeed, Allah is gentle and loves gentleness and gives due to gentleness that which He does not give to harshness. Right now, Aisha, was she really wrong in doing it? No, of course, like it was in a very, very specific situation, right? It's mandatory to defend the Sunnah, but we are supposed to do it in the best way. All right. When somebody, curses the Prophet ﷺ, are we just supposed to get up to them and beat them? Like, snap at them, smack them in the head and kick them? Is that what we're supposed to do? Is that what we're supposed to do? When we hear somebody cursing the Prophet ﷺ, is that what we're supposed to do? Obviously, no. But does that mean we just, stay silent and just keep listening? No. It's mandatory for us to defend the Sunnah. When the Prophet ﷺ is attacked, it's mandatory that we defend the Prophet, but it should be done in the best way. idfa' billati hiya ahsan. You're supposed to defend and convey and respond and react in the best way. We are supposed to react in the best way. Now, how many have you heard about the Charlie Hebdo shooting? Say yes in the chat. The Charlie Hebdo shooting. The Charlie Hebdo shooting was a very famous incident. Happened in 2015 in Paris, in France. So Charlie Hebdo shooting was a series of terrorist attacks that took place in France in 2015, claiming the lives of 17 people, including 11 journalists and security personnel at the Paris office of Charlie Hebdo, a satiric magazine. What they basically did was, they painted or drew the cartoon of the Prophet ﷺ in a very, very bad, explicit, immoral, demoralizing, diabolical manner. That is what they did. Now, was that right? Was it right for the magazine to do that? Obviously, no. There are some people who come and say, it's right to freedom of speech. That is hypocrisy. If you go to Germany or if you go to France and if you say that Hitler was a good person, that if you go to them and say that, the genocide, Jewish genocide was, not a bad thing, do you think, they would, treat you with the same reaction that, they continuously proclaim freedom of speech? Never, man. Like you will be jailed. Probably for 10 years. That's what they're going to do. If you took the flag of France and if you just burned it in France, do you think they're going to keep you alive? Hell no, man. Hell no. They're going to attack you in ways that you would regret what you did, right? Anyway, that's hypocrisy. That's a big hypocrisy. So Charlie Hebdo shooting, what Charlie Hebdo magazine did was extremely bad. But let us look at the Muslim response. What these Muslims did, was it right? Was it right of them to do what they did? Attacking and bombing and killing and subhanallah. Now, let me ask you, they did what they did. Does it have a positive influence or negative influence? If you think it was positive, say P. If it was negative, say N. Was it a positive influence or a negative? It was negative. Due to this, the hate crimes against Muslims increased. Due to this, Islamophobia increased. Due to this, a lot of people start hating Islam. Subhanallah. It's a very, very sad reality. It's a very, very sad reality. So when we defend the sunnah, we're supposed to do it in the most gentle manner, the most best way. ادفع بالتي هي أحسن. ادفع بالتي هي أحسن. إن الله رفيق يحب الرفق ويعطي على الرزق ما لا يعطي على العنف, which basically means Allah is gentle. Rafiq. Allah is gentle and He loves gentleness. يحب الرفق, and He gives for gentleness what He doesn't give for harshness. What He doesn't give for harshness. So Allah is gentle. He loves gentleness. So if you want to grow closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what you got to do is you got to be gentle in your dealings. The way you deal with your brothers, the way you deal with your mother, the way you deal with your husband, the way you deal with your sisters, the way you deal with your children, your sons and your daughters, it all needs to be gentle. Some people think that, to be a true Muslim man, they're going to act rough and tough. That is not what it means. Of course, there are areas or contexts in which you need to apply that. But normally, generally speaking, what you're supposed to do is focus on being gentle. If you deal with all people in gentleness, their way of communication with you, it's going to change a lot. It's going to change a lot. I do remember looking back, while I came to Egypt, trying to make sense of the system over here. And I got into not trouble, but, almost like fighting. So, the place that I used to live in Cairo City. And now I live in a different place. So in Cairo City, while I was living there, they did not have, it was a very, muzdahim area, which means it's a very, traffic block, congested area. So the place you park your car or your bike, it's all mixed up. And one day I, parked my bike in the place that I was not supposed to park to. And I did not know that. But at the same time, it was not a major mistake. It was just a minor mistake. I could just move the bike. Right. But there was a guy who just came up and banged on my door and started shouting and saying that he'd call the police and, started to make a big scene and started shouting at the top of his lungs. Now, of course, if I wanted, I could have given the same response to him. Right. I could have given the same response to him, but I just stood silent. I let him out, ventilate his emotion, let him, ventilate his anger. And he's also a very old guy. He's a doctor. So, I just, I told him to isbir, calm down. And, I listened to what he had to say. And after that, I just said sorry. That's it. The mistake was on my part. I just said sorry. But of course, the way he dealt with that, with me, that is not the way he was supposed to deal with. And I could have dealt with him in the same or more harsher manner. But if I dealt with the more harsher manner, subhanallah, the guy would become more harsher, right? And that would just lead to a fight, right? That would just lead to a battle. Hate and vengeance and revenge, right? Now, what basically happened after this was, that finished. He went back to his home, and the next day, he became calmer and calmer and calmer. And then later on, he came to me and he apologized. And he started giving me Egyptian food, and he started saying sorry. He started welcoming me to his home, and he started becoming very kind. Now imagine this. He became a close friend. Now imagine this. Imagine that I responded in a very harsh manner. I could have basically given him, more, anger than he's giving me, because I'm a young man and he's a very old guy, right? Now, if I did that, if I dealt with him in that manner, do you think that would have been positive? Do you think he would have become my friend? Do you think that would have happened? Obviously, no. He would have started hating every foreigner. Right, he would have started becoming racist. Right, he would start looking at every other Indian guy with the same perspectives from the same picture. Right, so if you deal with another person with gentleness, being gentle, with rifq, subhanallah, you can handle any situation. So whenever you get into a fight, whenever there are people who come to a conflict with you, just be gentle. Just be gentle. And this is a very important advice I give to a lot of teenagers. And a lot of teenagers, the way they deal with their parents, it's very harsh. The things they say to their parents is very harsh, and they don't realize it. And it leads to a lot of family problems. If you dealt with your wife in a gentle manner, she will appreciate you more. Imagine that she made some mistake in your home. Don't just shout at her. Don't just growl at her. Just appreciate her first, and then, correct her mistake in the most gentle manner. If you do that, she will start appreciating you. If you correct your husband by insulting him, by throwing harsh words at him, by cursing him, Do you think, he's going to love you more? No, he's going to hate you from the depth of his heart. That's what he's going to do, right? But if you deal with him in a very gentle manner, in the way that you're supposed to deal with him, with respect and love and kindness and mercy, it's just going to lead to, an increase in the love and mahabba and bond. But it's very, very hard. It's very, very hard to do it. Only the people with extreme patience will be able to do it. Only the people with extreme patience will be able to do it. Some people, they just come and they just want to, do a conflict or make a conflict or make a battle or just destroy your honor. They will insult you in front of the entire family, and you would really want to reply. But the real strength is being silent and being patient and observing perseverance and thinking about, the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and thinking about the fact that in the akhirah, Allah is going to reward me for this patience. That is how we're supposed to deal with situations. That is how we are supposed to deal with situations. And this is a very beautiful, beautiful statement. إن الرفق لا يكون في شيء إلا زانه ولا ينزع من شيء إلا شانه, which basically means gentleness was never put in something except that it beautified it. Gentleness is not taken away from something except that it makes it ugly. It makes it ugly. SubhanAllah, gentleness is the most beautiful character a person can have. Now, for a man to be gentle, does that mean he's supposed to, walk like a woman, talk like a woman, changing his voice tone? Is that what gentleness mean? Is that what gentleness mean? Astaghfirullah, no, that is not what gentleness means. That is not what gentleness means. Gentleness means to act in a very respectful and dignified and noble manner. That is what gentleness means. And if you're gentle, you beautify everything that you do. You beautify everything that you do. Instead of screaming and shouting in da'wah, if you do it with gentleness, subhanAllah, it's going to become more beautiful. It's going to become more beautiful. And if gentleness is taken away from something, it makes it very ugly. It makes it very ugly. And this is what a lot of the masculinity movements today need to understand. They think that to act tough, it basically means to act rude, right? To act rude. When your wife asks something, just answer in one word rather than explaining and elaborating it. Like that is what they think that, masculinity is for some reason. Like it's really stupid. It's really stupid. Gentleness, if it is taken away from masculinity, then masculinity really becomes toxic. Even femininity, in femininity too, if gentleness is taken away, femininity becomes really toxic. That is what a lot of these feminists, femtards, the fourth wave and fifth wave feminists really need to understand. Really need to understand. So whatever you do, try to be gentle in that. If you apply gentleness in your marriage, it's going to become really beautiful. If you put gentleness in anything, it'll become really better and beautiful. If you put gentleness in marriage, it'll become stronger. The love will increase. If you put gentleness in your home, your personal life will become really, really successful. It becomes really, really successful. And if you put gentleness in tarbiyah of children, they will grow to become successful. They will grow to become successful. Now, we need to put all of this in context. We need to put all of this in context. Imagine that you're giving tarbiyah to your children and your child, the pampered little monster, he broke something in your home. That's worth a lot. And you come to, you go to him and you say, no problem, my child, it's all right. Like it's wonderful. You are amazing. You are, absolutely brilliant, intelligent. That's what a lot of these European parents do, right? They treat children like, they are some thin piece of glass, like it's going to break in a minute. So, subhanAllah, if that, you're basically raising a monster. By the time the guy reaches 18, he'll become extremely self-righteous and egotistic. So part of the tarbiyah is also to beat him when it is required, to shout at him when it is required. Right? This is all part of tarbiyah. This is all part of tarbiyah. This is all, very, very important. This is all very, very, very important. So the part of your gentle tarbiyah, is that you get angry at him at times when you're supposed to do that, and you deal with him in a very merciful, beautiful and kind manner when you're supposed to do that. And to do that, you require experience, you require wisdom. This is very, very important. This is very, very important. You require that contextual wisdom. You require that contextual wisdom. Now, if you put that gentleness into it, it's going to become extremely beautiful. Your children are going to appreciate you, especially when you are, advising them, and especially when you are, giving them or admonishing them, right? Now, put gentleness in commanding good and forbidding evil. This is very important. Al-amru bil ma'ruf wa wanha 'anil munkar. It is a responsibility of every Muslim. If you see something good, you're supposed to appreciate it. If you see something bad, you are supposed to forbid it. This is very, very important. But if this is not done in the right way, it can have really, really big negative consequences. Really big negative consequences. Imagine that your child does something, negative, all right, something bad, something that you don't want him to do. You went to him and you shouted him, you beat him up, and he cries and cries. You make this big scene and you throw curse words at him, you swear at him. And like some parents even say things that are very damaging, that children, they remember it after even 10 or 15 years, and they hate their parents for that. Some parents say, I wish you weren't born. I wish you were not my child. Subhanallah, like, well, what are these words? What are these words? Like it's very dangerous words to even say to a child, right? And the child lives with that deep hate for his father, for his mother. Subhanallah, subhanallah. So when you are doing amr bil ma'ruf and nahy anil munkar, you're supposed to do it in the most gentle manner, right? You're supposed to do it in the most gentle manner. Don't use harsh speech. It's not going to work out. Don't use harsh speech. It is not going to work out. And instead of preventing or limiting evil, it can even lead to an increase, especially teenagers. For teenagers, if you tell them something in the harsh manner, if you are prohibiting something in a harsh manner, they're going to continue doing it. That's what they're going to do. They're going to persist on what they're doing, because arrogance and egotism is it's a very unique element of being a teenager, right? So it's very important that you deal with them in a gentle manner, right? It's very, very, very important. And nobody likes being criticized. All right. Let me ask you this. Do you like being criticized? Somebody comes to you and criticizes you. Do you like that? Do you like being criticized? No, nobody likes being criticized, right? Nobody likes being criticized. Nobody likes it. Nobody likes it. I will elaborate on this, a bit deeply, inshallah. Now, criticizing, what we need to understand is this. Human beings actually have the natural ability to self-justify all their actions. Any actions you do, you have the ability to justify it. You have the ability to justify it. Now, imagine that you criticize someone for something bad that they did. What basically happens is it will boost their justification power, right? It'll lead to an increase of self-justification and rationalization of actions. And human beings actually do it. Human beings actually do it a lot. They have the ability to justify anything that they're doing. Anything that they're doing. When we look at history, we see a lot of the examples for this. A lot of the examples for this, right? If you criticize your child, in a very harsh manner, what is basically going to happen is he is going to justify what he's going to do. All right, any bad behavior that he expressed, he is going to continue doing it, and he is going to find justifications. He's going to find justifications. And also, with regards to criticizing, there's constructive criticism and destructive criticism. We have already talked about this, so I hope you are taking this in the right perspective that it's supposed to be taken in. Right? I'm talking about destructive criticism. You're going and just blowing out your entire anger on that particular person. Right? That is what I'm talking about here. That is what I'm talking about here. But constructive criticism, it's very important. Constructive criticism, it's very, very, very important. All right, now coming back to the topic, everyone has the ability to justify. Everyone has the ability to justify anything they do, regardless of how immoral it is. Regardless of how immoral it is, they have the ability to justify it. And when you criticize in a harsh manner, you boost their self-justification power. A good example of this is two-gun crawling. Does anyone know two-gun crawling? Has anyone heard about two-gun crawling? If you have heard, say yes. If no, say no. Two-gun crawling. Now, this guy, subhanallah, like he is one of the most, biggest criminal that New York City has ever seen. And he's very, very young. If I remember correctly, it happened in the 1970s. I read the report like very long ago. Now, Tugan Crowley is a very young guy. He killed a lot of people. he killed a lot of people. And the reason why he's called as two-gun Crawley is because he always had two guns with him. He always had two guns with him, and he would just shoot. If I tell you his story, you would be really surprised. You would be really surprised. He was going in the car, one day, like he had a fight with his girlfriend, which is haram. Like, he's obviously not a Muslim, but in their culture, they do that for some reason. And, he basically took the gun and killed his girlfriend. There was another, his friend in the car. He also killed him. And another police officer came to question it. He killed him as well. So he killed a lot of people. He killed a lot of people. And, the police, there were thousands and thousands of police who came to capture him. And he was basically arrested there was a home arrest kind of system, or he was hiding in a building in the New York City. The police surrounded the building. There were thousands and thousands of policemen just to catch this one guy. I think he was just 19 or 18 years old, if I remember correctly. And the guy, subhanallah, before he was being caught, like there was a big, police shootout, gunfights and everything. And before he was caught, he wrote a letter. If you read this letter, you would be surprised. The guy was writing he was justifying everything that he did. He's saying that I'm a good man. I'm having a very clean heart, but the society made me like this. The society, made me do what I did, etc. The guy was justifying everything that he did. Subhanallah. So human beings actually have really good self-justification power. Even Hitler, justified killing 5 million Jews. Right? So human beings definitely has that power, right? And also, does anyone know the second picture? The guy in the second picture? Does anyone know the guy in the second picture? The guy in the second picture. Now, he is Al Capone. The people who may not have heard about Al Capone is going to be very little. So Al Capone, subhanallah, this guy was a mastermind in mafia business, drug dealing, prostitution, human trafficking, killing people. You name it, the guy has done it. That's how evil this guy is. And he was one of the most richest mafia lords at that time. Very rich, millions and millions of dollars he had at hand. Subhanallah. And before he was caught and, before he was punished, the guy basically justified everything that he did. Subhanallah. So human beings do have that power. And human beings basically, there's another very unique element of, with the human characteristic that we study in psychology. I can't remember the name of the exact theory. It is something with regards to human appraisal systems. The human beings, when they see negative things in other people, they notice it really fast. But when there are negative things in oneself, they won't realize it. It's very hard for them to realize. It's very hard for them. When I say them, I'm also a human being. I say we, all right? It's very hard for us to realize it, right? Subhanallah. So 99 out of 100, people don't criticize themselves for anything, no matter how wrong it may be. And imagine that you criticize them very harshly. If you criticize and swear at them very harshly, what's basically going to happen is it's going to boost their already powerful self-justification power, and they're going to justify what they did very, very strongly. Now, this is another good example. This is one of the most shocking studies I've ever done. When I was doing studies in psychology, especially focusing on psychopathology and psychotism, and criminal psychology, was related to forensic psychology as well. This particular case study, it blew my mind. Now, this guy, his name is Carl Panzram. And before he was killed in the prison, right, before, he was given death sentence. Sorry, it is not death sentence. What is it called? Death by hanging. He wrote a big letter. I think it was, if I remember correctly, 80 pages or something. And he just basically lists out every crime that he did, and he justifies everything. Let me read a small part of the article he wrote. If you're a person who is easily disturbed, please exit now or mute it. All right, and mute my voice, because this is going to be extremely disturbing. I'm going to read it now. In my lifetime, I have murdered 21 human beings. I have committed thousands of burglaries, robberies, larcenies, arsons, and last but not least, I have committed sodomy on more than 1,000 human beings. For all these things, I am not the least bit sorry. I have no conscience, so that does not worry me. I don't believe in man, God, nor devil. I hate the whole damn human race, including myself. Now, I very much doubt, like, this is a very specific case of psychopathology, not very normal. It's a very abnormal condition, but at the same time, he was justifying. And human beings actually have this power of self-justification. Now, this is a very extreme case scenario, but just understand that human beings have very, very powerful justification capacity, all right? But when you criticize them destructively, it boosts it again. It boosts it again. So when you talk to your child, this is the last thing that you want to do. Criticizing him negatively and destructively, and you're just going to make him the best liar. This is why I always say that the harshest parents raise the best liars. The harshest parents raise the best liars, because these children, they have been shouted and shouted and shouted at, they've been beaten up so bad that they have learned the art on how to strategically lie. They have become pathological liars. They've become pathological liars. They can lie about anything and they won't feel bad. They won't feel bad, right? So does that mean you're supposed to avoid criticism at all cost? But like, you don't criticize anyone for anything? Is that what it means? No, that is not what it means. You should criticize. You should criticize people if you see them doing bad things, but it's supposed to be constructive criticism. It's supposed to be constructive criticism. It should be done in the right way. Done in the right way. And I'll tell you a very good technique on how to criticize. All right. And before criticizing, your intention should be good. If you're just criticizing to destroy that person's dignity, then obviously you're starting with a very bad start. You're beginning with a very bad start, and you are going to be punished for that. Like, it's a sin. It's a sin. You're destroying the other person's nobility and dignity. So when you criticize another person, it should be with good intentions. It should be with good intentions, and you're supposed to think good for the person. You're supposed to think good for the person. Now, let me give you an example on how to criticize. All right, I'll tell it to the men first. So imagine this. Imagine this. You came home after your work, and your wife, she made some food. She has been working on making the food for a lot of hours. She made good food, but the food tastes really bad. The food tastes really bad. Okay, now I'm going to give you two situations, and I want you to tell me which situation is the best, or which response is the best. Situation A. The husband, he gets really angry, and he says, "What are you doing? I regret marrying you. You are the worst person. I work 7 hours a day, and I come home, and this is what I get. You filthy woman. What have you done? Have you been sitting in home lazily, even though she has been working really hard to take care of the home?" And you just really shout at her and destroy her confidence, and you criticize her in a very, very destructive manner. And you even, talk about her family. You curse the family as well. You learned this from your mother and your grandmother and your great-grandmother and your great-great-great-grandmother, and you don't even know how to cook. Your entire family is like this. You're this, you're that, and you just literally destroy her inside out. That is situation A. All right, that is situation A. Now, let's look at situation B. Let's look at situation B. You taste the food and it tastes really bad and you're really hungry. All right. And you start by telling her that, she's a really good cook, mashallah. The food that you made before was all very nice, mashallah. But I think today you might have forgotten to put, a little bit salt. Or you could say it like this. You could tell her that, the food tastes good, but it would taste better if you add in a little bit salt. And men really need to understand that when you criticize food, it really, really hurts women. It really, really hurts women. Let me ask the woman here. When your brother or your father or your husband criticizes your food, don't you feel offended? Don't you feel offended? You would feel offended, right? You would feel offended, right? So the way that a person criticizes the wife, it needs to be done in a very, very clear-cut manner. And now let's go to the next example. But before that, let me ask you, is reaction A better or reaction B better? Is reaction A better or reaction B better? Reaction B, without a shadow of a doubt. Without a shadow of a doubt. Now let's twist the table. Imagine that it's the wife, situation now, or wife's, chance now to respond. Imagine that your husband does something, that you don't like. You told him to not, put his dress or throw his bag, on the bed or something like that. All right. I'm giving a very, specific example, and these examples are taken from the studies in marital psychology. Imagine, like, you really hate him doing it. You really hate him doing it, but he still does it. Right? He still does it. Okay. Now, he comes back from work and he, puts his dirty clothes on the bed or, whatever that is. Now, there are two ways you can deal with the situation. Number one, you come and you see this and you shout at him at the top of his lungs and you say, you are the worst man in the entire world. You never do anything good for me. And you say a lot of ungrateful things, like really ungrateful things. And a lot of women do it. They say, you have never done anything good for me, even though the guy was like serving you for the past 10 years. And you throw a lot of curse words and you swear at him and you say, your father was also like this. Your great grandfather was also like this. Your entire, generation was like this, and your family is also like this. They're all rude. They're all egotistic. I hate this life. And like you just destroy him. Just destroy him. That is situation A. All right, that is situation A. It's confirmed that this is going to be very destructive. You're probably going to get divorced. That's what's going to happen. Now, in situation B or response B, what you basically do is you tell him that that you respect him a lot and you really like a lot of good things that he is doing, and you express your gratitude for it, and you start by that tone, and then you frame your words very, very politely. You say that if you did this too, then you would be really more amazing, right? If you did this too, you would be a bit more amazing, right? Like when you say it in that way, like the negativity is taken from it, and the guy would really try to do it then. I can assure you this. The guy would try to do it. The guy would try to do it. So this should be applied. This should be applied to every situation, not between just, husband and wife. It's also applicable to, when you deal with your daughters or your sons. All right. Imagine that your daughter wore a dress that is not necessarily Islamic, right? And you want her to wear hijab. And like you go to her and you tell her, like, what is this? What kind of dress is this? Are you going out to get attention of men? Like, what filthy mind do you have? This is the way I raised you. I'm disappointed in you. I wish, you were not my daughter. I'm going to give you for adoption. And you just basically say a lot of negative things. If you do that, the child may, listen to you because you shouted at them. But the moment they get a bit more freedom, the moment they join college, they're going to throw hijab out of the window. That's what they're going to do. All right. But rather than doing it in that way, imagine that you went to her and you told her, my child, in Islam, we're supposed to have haya. And look, all of these men are going to look at you in a really bad way. They're not going to respect you if you do that. And you can tell her, like, you would be more respected and more beautiful if you wore a hijab. And like you could give her nasihah and good advice. If you do that, the child is going to appreciate wearing the hijab. So framing your words very carefully is extremely, extremely, extremely important. But it's going to be very hard for some people to do it. It's going to be very, very hard for some people to do it. When that person makes the same mistake again and again, and it tests your patience, and basically your blood is boiling. Your blood is boiling, and you want to say the worst things that you have ever said in your life. If you are able to hold yourself in that particular situation, that is true strength. That is true strength, and you will be rewarded for each second of patience. You will be rewarded for each second of patience. And silence itself is really powerful. Silence itself is very, very powerful. So when you criticize another person, if it is necessary, criticize in a constructive manner, and you would find that everything that you do becomes really, really beautiful. It'll become really, really beautiful, and they will appreciate you for doing it. They will appreciate you for doing it, inshallah. So that is how you're supposed to deal with him, deal with people. Right. Now, let me give you a final, an example from the life of the Prophet ﷺ, and we'll end, inshallah. Now, there was a specific case of Malik bin Anas, radiallahu anhu. All right. Sorry, Anas bin Malik, radiallahu anhu. How many of you have heard about Anas bin Malik, radiallahu anhu? Now, the story of Anas bin Malik, radiallahu anhu, is really, really amazing. It's really, really amazing. But before getting into that story, let's have an introduction. There's a very powerful quote of Jarir ibn Abdullah al-Bajri, rahimahullah, who said that anyone who have been prevented from being gentle have been prevented from all good. And it's a very, very powerful quote. It's a very, very powerful quote. If you remove gentleness from your personality, you are going to be hated. You're going to be hated. All right? So be gentle in all your dealings. Be gentle in all your dealings. And it is a huge blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a huge blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So be gentle, be soft, and be kind. And it's a very major problem seen in many people. Now, let me ask you this, from the perspective of gender psychology, who has this problem more, men or women? Men or women? We're getting multiple answers here. Okay, so it seems like, women are blaming men and men are blaming women. That's what we're saying here, I think. Anyway, like it goes back to the, earlier example I stated, which is, we fail to see our own sins, but we see the sins of other people very clearly. Now, from the perspective of gender psychology, men, hormonally speaking and psychologically speaking, men are a bit more harsher naturally than women. And it's for good reasons. It's for good reasons, all right? And women naturally, femininity, one of the most, common characteristics of femininity or important characteristic of femininity is that there is gentleness, that there is laying, and that is, merciful kindness. Like it's all part of femininity, right? So for men to become gentle, for some people, like it's hard. To talk to kids, it's hard, right? To deal with, children, it's hard, right? This is why, always, like if you look at kindergarten schools, like which gender are most teachers in? Do we have more female teachers or, male teachers in kindergartens? Female teachers, right? It's for a good reason. It's for a good reason. Because a man, I'm not talking about every man, all right? There are a lot of men who are very gentle, but generally speaking, if the guy, he sees, the child, crying in a kindergarten, imagine that there are 20 children, and like if 5 kids starts crying or, does something bad, okay, he will try to calm them down for the first 5 minutes. Then for the next 10 minutes, he's going to shout at them. And then if he shouts at them for the next 10 minutes, the other kids are also going to cry. And when 20 children cry, the guy is going to go mad. That is what he's going to do, right? It's very, very hard, like for men to handle such situations because, being gentle, like it takes effort. Now, I'm not, generalizing. There are a lot of men who know how to deal with these situations really well. But, due to the gender differences, it's a bit harder, from the man's side to be more gentle, right? Anyway, so it's a major character problem seen in many people. Now, this was an overgeneralization in women too. A lot of women have this big problem. They don't know how to deal gently. They don't know how to deal gently with other people. They're just harsh. They say the more harshest words. They have very little emotional intelligence. Subhanallah. And due to this, they lead to a lot of relationship problems. They have very bad bond with their mothers, with their fathers, with their brothers, with their sisters. They keep on fighting. Every time they have or they initiate a conversation, they just start fighting. Subhanallah. It's a very, very bad adab. Now, the next question I would like to ask you is this. Is it okay to beat children? Is it okay to beat children? Is it okay to beat children? So we got multiple answers here. Some people said no, and some people said when needed. Okay. Now, beating children like it's a very, very important topic. I don't know whether we'll have time today to discuss it or not, but just to give you an introduction, there is a movement that happened in the early 1970s called as the self-esteem movement. The self-esteem movement. All right. Now, has anyone heard about the self-esteem movement? The self-esteem movement is also tied to liberalism as well. The self-esteem movement. All right. Now, they came with a lot of quotes saying that every child is special. A lot of positive things are there, mashallah. But at the same time, they basically made it a taboo to even beat children. All right. To even beat children, or to even shout at them, or to even deal with them, in a negative, or, in a way that is a bit harsh. That is a bit harsh. Right. And subhanallah, like the experiences I had, I used to be the ambassador of Childline Network, the chairman of Childline Ambassador Network, a few years ago. And like, you could clearly see, if you take a look at the Childline calls, there are some really spoiled children who call Childline because their mother beat them. All right. Their mother beat them. And the guy is just 6 or 7 years old. And the guy is complaining, I need to lodge a complaint against my mother or my father because they beat me. Why did they beat me? Because I broke the TV, right? Like, when you look at these records, like, you would probably want to say, I would come to your home and I would beat you up if you continue doing what you're doing, right? The guy, like, the child has become so pampered. The guy has become a little monster that he thinks that he's a very self-righteous person. And, his own mother, who, carried him for 9 months, he wants to, imprison her because she beat him up. Or maybe just touched him, or just beaten him in a very, very mild manner, and the guy's offended. The people have become snowflakes these days. Anyway, it's a very sad reality. Now, with regards to beating children as well, like, there's the other extreme. There is the other extreme where they beat them up. They beat them up. Subhanallah. Like, where is the kindness and the laying that the Prophet ﷺ taught us? And even in some schools, even in some madrasas, I get really astonished when I hear this. Like, madrasas are places where the people are supposed to teach the deen. And the ustad, they just beat children so much that the children hate Islam now. They hate the Quran now. For making a simple mistake in the Quran, the ustad beat them so bad, now the guy hates Quran. And when he becomes a bit more mature, like, they basically start leaving Islam. They basically start leaving Islam. Subhanallah, what they saw in madrasa, like, that is not real Islam. A person with an Islamic personality will not beat children like this. They will not beat children like this. Subhanallah. Beating children really, really harshly and dealing with them in a very impolite manner. Subhanallah. All in the name of tarbiyah. All in the name of tarbiyah. This is not tarbiyah. This is child abuse. These guys, deserve to go to prisons. That's what these guys deserve. Subhanallah. So, proper training and proper awareness is needed. There are two extremes. There is one liberal extreme in which you take care of children like they're little prince and princesses, and on the other hand, you treat them like they're your slaves, right? So there are two extremes. You're not supposed to follow any of these extremes. We're supposed to be moderate. If they do some really bad things, for the sake of tarbiyah, for the sake of teaching them proper adab, you can, mildly beat them. And I'm saying this, probably a lot of people are getting post-traumatic stress disorder, thinking of their childhood. How many of you were beaten? How many of you were beaten in childhood? Say yes in the chat. Some people are thinking about hangers and bells, especially if you have desi parents. I don't know, the spatula that your mother used for cooking, getting beaten with that. Anyway, so, being beaten, like, it's a good thing to a degree, but like, when you overdo that, like, when you just take anything in the house and throw out your child, that is really bad. Here in Egypt as well, I have heard cases when with the mother, like, she's cooking or she's doing whatever, and the child does something bad, the mother takes anything that she gets in her hand, and just throws at the child. Subhanallah, that is child abuse. That is child abuse. It's really bad. It's really bad. And sometimes when I see the way they treat their children, like, I just feel sad. That is not how children are supposed to be dealt with. Right? That's not how children are supposed to be dealt with. Anyway, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide them. I'm not generalizing. There are a lot of amazing, good Egyptian mothers, mashallah. Just like there are good mothers in every part of the world. But this is one aspect that, people need to understand and have awareness of. So it's very important that we have kindness and rifq and mercy and gentleness in anything that we do. If we do everything that we have, in our daily life with gentleness, if you drive your car with gentleness, if you ride your bike with gentleness, if you talk with other people in gentleness, if you treat your children with gentleness, if you treat your husband with gentleness, if you treat your wife with gentleness, if you treat your mother-in-law with gentleness, if you apply gentleness in any situation, it's going to become really beautiful, but it takes a lot of patience. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all this patience. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us all with the ability to patiently persevere and hold our anger inside without letting it all out and expressing and blasting, and dealing with a really immature and impulsive manner. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us all from shaitan. The time, it has extended. I'm having another class, so we'll conclude now. We'll be continuing with the story of Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anh, and the same topic for the next week as well, inshallah. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار ربنا إننا نسألك حبك وحب من يحبك وحب عمل خير ولا حبك وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. Alhamdulillah, mashallah, such an amazing, beneficial session. Now, I would like to call upon Sister Atiba for the conclusion.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallahu khaira, Brother Wafi, for another wonderful, insightful session. It was very beneficial, alhamdulillah. We learned that gentleness is important part to live life good. Gentleness is necessary for constructive criticism. To conquer conflict of any kind, gentleness is needed. Raising child in well manner, gentleness is needed. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, may Allah make all of us gentle and kind and make all of us gentle in every aspects of life. However, Jazakallahu khaira, our moderator Shifa, for an outstanding moderation. Jazakallahu khaira, all of you, my brothers and sisters who were present in this session. Once again, Jazakallahu khaira, Brother Wafi, for benefited us by your knowledge. May Allah accept our gathering. Ameen. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.